Fred lived in a house by the sea. Now, he chose his house by the sea, and his family said, "Fred, are you sure you want to go and live by the sea?" They said, "Sometimes there is a risk of flooding in that area." And he said, "Don't worry about it. The Lord will save me." He was, of course, a stalwart believer. Anyway, Fred moved into his house by the sea, and he lived there happily for many years until one day there was a warning, and they said, "We believe that there will be water coming in to the area, high tide, a flood." And so they said, "Please get your sandbags just to ensure that water doesn't come into your properties." And Fred said, "It's okay, the Lord will save me, I'm going to be fine." There was a second warning, and it said, "We need you to leave your homes now because we anticipate that the flood warning is going to become more alert and the water is going to get even higher and it will not be safe in your home." Fred said, "I'm not going anywhere, the Lord will save me, I'll be fine." Now the tide began to rise and boats came out, and they came along, the emergency services, and said to Fred, "Please, will you get into this boat? Because obviously there's a severe flood and you're putting yourself in danger." Fred said, "It's okay, I'm going to go up to the second story of my home, I'm going to be fine, the Lord will save me." So he went upstairs. Eventually he ends up on the roof. Are you anticipating how this is going to go? He ends up on the roof of the house, and a helicopter comes out, and they say, "Grab hold of the rope, start climbing up, come on, we've come to rescue you." And Fred says, No, it's okay, the Lord will save me." Well, Fred wakes up in heaven, and at the appointed time he has his appointment with the Lord, and he says, "Lord, why didn't you save me?" And the Lord says, "I sent the flood warning, I sent the boat, I sent the helicopter." Now, the point is that there are emergencies that happen in life, and it's important that we prepare for them. Yes, the Lord will ultimately save those of us who believe that the Lord will save us. We're going to be okay, but we must take steps to protect ourselves as well. So I'm going to talk briefly about some steps we can take to ensure we're going to be safe during an emergency of whatever sort. First of all, what we want to do is make sure we have an emergency plan with our family and those who are in our household. We need to know that we have somewhere that we assemble when there is an emergency. So if, for example, we have a fire in the home, the assembly point or the meeting point should never be outside of the house, because glass could come out, it could explode outward, and then people could be injured. And so therefore you need to be at a safe distance from your home, across the road or around the corner. So always have an assembly point. Have a clear exit route as well for emergencies. This is the way we leave the house if there is an emergency. And just make sure that everybody's aware of it. Also, make sure you have an emergency contact, somebody outside of the home who isn't in the immediate area that you can go to in the event of an emergency. Now, we don't want this to happen, but if it does, have somebody outside of the area that you can go to. Also, purchase a document box if you can, or use a plastic box. The document box is where you put all of your precious items. Maybe you no longer have your mother with you and you don't want to lose that image you have of her. And there are boxes that are both fire and waterproof. And so you could invest in one of those and protect all of your precious documents by putting them in that box. So you can put precious photographs, passports, and other things in there, birth certificates, things that you may consider to be irreplaceable. Put them in the box. Next, ensure that you are able to turn off all of your utilities, so you know where the switch is to turn off the water, to turn off the gas, and to turn off the electricity. It's really important, and that anybody else who's an adult in the home knows how to do this as well. So it's a good idea just to take them through it and show them where the levers are, the buttons are, and what they need to do to switch off the utilities, because it may become necessary. Also, consider making sure that you have access to warm blankets and warm clothing. Now, we're coming into winter in London, and if there is a problem, it's going to be made more acutely uncomfortable by virtue of the fact that it's cold, inclement weather. So make sure you've got your blankets and everything else. And don't forget that if the electricity goes off, you can use your duvet to cover your chest freezer or freezer, and that'll actually preserve the cold in those areas for quite some time. So it'll keep your freezer cool and help your food to last for longer. Not bad. Also, make sure that you have supplies of food, things that are non-perishable, so tinned foods in the back of the cupboard, and a tin opener. If you use an electric tin opener, you don't want to be trying with that because you might lose power. So make sure you also have a hand-usable tin opener as well, so that you can utilize that in case of a power cut. And maybe you're in and you can't get out to go and get food. So make sure you have some foods that you can also prepare at home. Make sure you've got a bag of rice, bag of flour. You can do some pancakes and other things to keep you going, as well as ensuring that you've got sanitary products in the house. If you are a woman of a certain age, make sure you have what you need and that you've got some extras, an extra month's supply, just to keep you going in case of an emergency of whatever type. In addition, ensure you've got a phone charger, okay? A power bank is really useful to make sure that you can charge your mobile phone if the power goes on. I live in London. We are prone to power cuts here, power and water cuts, okay? Those are the outages we have. Sometimes internet outages as well. So ensure that you have your power bank and you also have additional water so that nobody's going to be thirsty. Maybe purchase a 5-litre bottle or a couple of those that you can store away. And in addition, make sure you've got some water that's put away that isn't for drinking, but is for things like flushing the toilet, because you may need that. Remember those hand sanitizers we were using a couple of years ago? Hold on to them if you've still got them. They are helpful, and buy them if they're cheap. They're useful. So use hand sanitizers. Hold on to any masks you may have. They may come in handy. You never know. As well as making sure that you've got a first aid kit. Now, you don't have to buy an expensive posh first aid kit. You can buy some items and put them together. Just do an online check and see what's recommended in your first aid kit. And you can go along to the pound shop or other stores and buy cotton wool, gauze, plasters, sanitizer, whatever you may need to put into your first aid kit. Okay, so do consider doing that. Make sure that's readily available and accessible, because you never know. And an additional word is that if you have a wound that there is a lot of blood coming from, just put pressure on it, apply pressure and stop the bleeding. Okay, that's really important. And if there is a burn, make sure that you put that burn under cold running water, okay? Under the cold tap, running water for 20 minutes or so until you can get some emergency help with that wound. In addition, let's think about the childcare. That's really important. Now, this came up in a discussion I had earlier on this topic. What about childcare? Now, if you are, for example, a parent of 6 children or so, and they're not all going to be able to get into an ambulance if there's an emergency with one of them, maybe it'll be one child that's injured and an additional small child. Who is going to look after your other children in an emergency? You need to begin to think about that now. So you need to start scoping out people who you consider would be suitable to keep an eye on them in an emergency. When I say scope out, just get the feel of who people are, rather than feeling that it's an emergency, so that's what you have to do, and then you leave them with somebody who's completely unsuitable or could actually represent a danger to them. So do think carefully and make a plan for who will take care of your children. Stay calm. That's really important. Just breathe. In an emergency, make sure you keep breathing and stay calm. Keep telling yourself, like Fred, everything's going to be okay. I'm going to be all right. It's all going to work out, okay? And lastly, just in case you're thinking, interesting, but I'm okay. I probably won't plan anything. It'll all work out. Just remember these words. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Bye for now.